Artist on call. Artist on call.
What's up, guys? How you doing today?
What's up, man? How are you?
Good. So we're here with KJ and Johnny Juice from the Oddysy out of New York City. Now, starting with KJ, how did you get started in music? You know, what was the first exposure?
My first exposure was my best friend from home, Keith, who was into music his whole life, and everything that he liked, I liked. And one day he wanted to start a band, and of course, the band had like 19 guitar players and 10 drummers and no bass player. So he's like, "You're it." And after he explained to me what a bass is, I fell in love with the instrument, and been in love with it ever since.
That's dope. Now, what about you, Johnny Juice?
Same question. How did I get into music?
Right.
I'm not even into music now. I don't know what you're talking
about. All that gear is for show.
Yeah. I started out at family functions. My grandfather was a percussionist. His brother was in a big salsa band in Puerto Rico. So I grew up where everybody kind of grabbed an instrument during big parties and rock. So we all picked out of the communal percussion pack, and I always ended up getting the bongos. So I started playing them, and the neighbors all played instruments like keyboards and guitars and things like that. You know, growing up in the Bronx in the 70s, you kind of almost fell into some kind of musical creative output type thing. So I started out as a b-boy, and you call them break dancers, and playing percussion stuff. And then I saw a dude, these two turntables in the park. His name is Grandmaster Flash. And I was like, ew, I want to do that. But I didn't know anybody that had the equipment. So I would go, pretty much hang out at other people's cribs that had equipment and kind of got on their equipment when they were smoking weed or doing whatever they were doing. So I became the guy that brought the weed over. I didn't smoke myself, but it was a distraction. So when they would break out to go smoke their weed, they would let me hang out and get on the turntable. So big shout out to DJ Will and the weed smoking buddies. Thanks for letting me get on.
Just for the record, I smoke enough weed for both of us.
Yeah. Now the question is DJ Johnny Juice still the supplier? You know, that's the biggest question.
No, why do you think I'm in this band?
They're old enough to get their own weed.
No, that's awesome. You know, and obviously the Bronx is, the birthplace of hip hop in general too. So that goes to show right there, that you had no choice but to be involved. I remember like Grand Wizard Theodore coming through the academy to teach, and like that guy, being a legendary DJ. I'm honored to say I've ever met the dude because, creating that sound and everything.
Yeah, shout out to the L Brothers, by the way.
What's your take on DJing today? Like, do you feel like, I'm assuming you're still authentic vinyl from all the videos I've seen. What do you think of all this new CDJ and digital mixing? What's up? What's your opinion on that?
I have no problem with any. I mean, you having a piece of gear that can do things doesn't make you good.
Right.
I mean, I can give you a piano that does auto accompaniment. Kind of got to know what key to press first in order for there to be an accompaniment to it. So I mean, yeah, it makes some tasks easier. I mean, obviously, there's a big thing with the sync button. You press sync and it synchronizes two records together. That may be true, but it's not going to synchronize a record that's 120 beats per minute with a 67 beats per minute record. One. Two, it's not going to make them sound good together. So you got to pick the right records. I mean, that's like saying that somebody that took steroids could knock 450-foot home runs. You still got to hit the ball. You know what I'm saying? If you could, if I got into a batter's box and swung at them 90-something miles per hour fastballs, I'm missing every one, I don't care how much steroids I take. I can't hit them. It's just, there's got to be a basic skill level. So I'm not mad at any of that, man. You like vinyl, rock it. If you got CDJs, I remember when DJ Cheese won the world championship, the DMC championship, there was no scratching in the DMC. It was called the Disco Mix Club, and everybody was mixing. Every one of those dudes were pissed. what is this scratching crap? This is the disco mix club. Why are you scratching? And now it's literally a turntablist battle. I don't see anybody mixing at all in it.
Right.
Sometimes the evolution is supposed to happen. Just let it happen. Stop bitching and just do you.
I'm 100% with it. From a business standpoint, I think the only problem I have with, I guess it's not even an equipment thing, because I guess vinyl DJs could do this too. But when I'm, offering X amount to do a gig or whatever, and then somebody undercuts me and all they're going to do is press play the whole time and not mix, like that shit drives me nuts. But then again, it's also like out of my control. I did what I could to sell it, and they got it. So, I mean,
you know what? People were doing that with vinyl.
Right.
There were DJs that just threw records on and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been happening.
Honestly. So, you could say the equipment is responsible, but you want to know what really messed up music? CDs.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know why? Because now you could fast forward through the songs you don't like on an album. So now, after CDs came out, you had album cuts. There was no such thing as an album cut. You made as many good records as you could. You did an album, and that was it. And then somebody said, yo, you can just skip over that record entirely. Screw it. You can even program it. 3, 2, 5. Forget about 4. That one sucked. So now you throw it on the album. It's filler. It's just an album record. So, but, why are we worried about any of that shit, man? We make hot joints. Me and KJ, we making a whole album full of bangers.
Yeah, now people listen to like Stairway to Heaven and they're like, wait, that song's 10 minutes? Why the hell they do that?
How many guitar solos?
Yeah, what the hell? That's an album right there, But like, now your history, KJ, working in bands and everything, what inspired? I mean, obviously this could have been, DJ Juice's idea too, but like what inspired this whole group to form the way it did?
My background is in jazz. I studied jazz. Went to a conservatory in Philly and studied under some amazing people. And so I thought everything had to be that for a long time. Fast forward, I moved to New York, realized that to pay the rent, you got to do a little bit of everything if you want to make it as a, freelance musician, and developed a taste for, an appreciation for everything. Everything became important. So after I got done being everybody else's bass player, I wanted to put out I wanted to do something that was more, more my personality, and had this vision for a duo. Me and somebody, a musical soulmate. So I started out by doing an EP produced by Scott Hull that has yet to see the light of day. And I had, I knew Juice from, previous lifetime, and asked him if he would, nervously asked him if he would scratch on one of the tunes. And it gave birth to this amazing thing that superseded the EP that I was working on and turned into this 13-song record that we got coming out. And this Odyssey, this musical Odyssey, no pun intended, it's, shit just happens like that. Sometimes, two people get together and figure out that they're thinking with the same musical brain. And that's where we met up.
I love the blending of genres. And when you're blending funk and soul with that, and you're mixing it up with hip hop, game over. I mean, as soon as I heard that, I was like, damn.
Yeah, we take pride in the fact that we're genre fluid. We don't. We sat and talked at the beginning of this whole thing, and we agreed. Juice said it best. We're not gonna make music for anybody but us. We're not gonna follow trends, and we're not gonna hold ourselves to a certain style or a certain instrumentation or a certain vibe. If we feel it, we're gonna do it. And if you like it, then you like it. And if you don't, well, all right.
Hip hop DJs in the 70s were essentially what me and KJ are doing. There was no hip hop records. There was no rap records in the 70s until 79. So what were people DJing from 73 to 79 when hip hop started in 70? We were DJing all types of records, salsa records, reggae records, punk rock records, you name it, we found something funky, right? So Big Beat by Billy Squiire, the Incredible Bongo Band's Apache, Booker T and the MG's Melting Pot, like all these songs are from different genres. They all from different groups that represent the whole spectrum of musicality. Some of
100%.
them are, yeah, some of them are real funky and nasty. Some of them are corny. Look at Three. That's the Magic Number by De La Soul, by Bob Durros, right? He's the guy that did Schoolhouse Rock. So I mean, really, you know what I mean? You can take Creedence Clearwater Revival. You can take anything. That's the whole. That's the whole aesthetic of hip hop. So why would that? Why would that stop there? Now I'll tell you why it stops there. Because a lot of the guys that eventually came into the rap genre and the hip hop thing, they didn't play any instruments anyway. So you're around the like-minded people that were kind of the same thing, and the bands usually stuck together. They were over there in that corner. But think about this: Suck MCs. Who did the music for that? That was Orange Crush. Remember Orange Crush? Orange Crush did that song, I Want Action. I Want Action. They were actual band, right?
Right.
It was Allison Williams on vocals, who eventually got to deal with Def Jam later on. Curtis Blow was in that band. Larry Smith was in that band. Davey DMX was in that band. You see the trend here? The whole bunch of cats that end up going into hip hop that played in an actual band. Larry Smith ended up producing Run DMC and Houdini. Davey DMX, same thing. All of these dudes took their skills and went that way. But a lot of them didn't come back, right? But I've always worked with phenomenal bass players and guitar players and keyboard players. Vernon Reid played the guitar, Sophisticated Bitch on Public Enemy's first record. You know what I'm saying? Eric Sadler from the Bomb Squad was a multi-instrumentalist. You know, so when KJ said you want to do scratching on it, to be honest with you, he gave me multiple records, and I said, I don't think any of them, I mean, maybe one or two could use a little bit of scratching, but it's not necessary. Like if I was producing it, I would say maybe this one has a space for it, but doesn't really need it,
Right.
you know? And I was thinking as a producer, really, not as a DJ, which I was pretty much overstepping my bounds there. So I'm glad that I'm glad KJ didn't stick a foot in my ass. But I was like, listen, you know, when I listen to things that I'm working on, I kind of it's about the song, you know, it's about the group, it's about that. It's not about me. I mean, of course, I could get on any record and show off for like 20, 30 seconds of soloing, but that doesn't serve the record. So, you know, KJ was like, hey, you got any beats laying around? I'm like, yeah, you know, and when I sent it to him, he could have easily been like, nah, son, because some of the beats I sent to him, a lot of them actually, I've played for cats that were good friends of mine, like Charlie Brown from Leaders of the New School, who he's been my MC since before there was a Leaders of the New School, him and Buster. You know, so these guys I knew, and they were like, I'm good. Nah, they passed on those beats. So I'm like, but I loved them. I'm like, he's got some life, man. Somebody got to bring him to life. I sent him to KJ. I'm like, he's probably gonna say the same shit. Like, nah, they're whack. You know. And when he came back and says, hey, I can work with this. And the first song, he did a chorus to it. I gave him a title. I didn't give him anything else and the beat. He came back with literally the same exact chorus that I recorded on it, but I didn't send him my vocals on purpose. And I'm like, as soon as he sent that back, I'm like, this is the one, man. That's exactly what I was going to do. And I didn't tell him, you know.
That's so
and
dope.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah, the same feeling. I mean, that this is the one moment. It was, you know, the thing I remember about doing that EP that I got Juice to Scratch on that never came out was that I could never make it feel like I wanted to feel. It wasn't groovy, you know, because I was doing all the programming myself, and that's just, I have a lot of talents. This just doesn't happen to be one of them. And he sends me these beats, and I'm like, holy shit, this takes care of what to me is the most important thing. You know, I just wanted to move. I wanted to, you know, I want people to want to shake their ass, you know, when they hear it. And, you know, I was just never able to do that. And he sends me this shit and I'm like, oh my God, I can write a song on top of this and people are still going to shake their asses, you know. That's all I wanted.
It's, you know, it's kind of crazy how in depth what you guys are doing is, and people are, you know, people from the surface, like a normal consumer is just going to look at it and be like, oh, this is a DJ with vinyl and this is a guy with a guitar and a microphone, something like that, something simple. But what they don't realize is the genres you're blending go back so far and have so many elements involved that it's like insane. Like look at hip hop, you know, over time. Now it's all like you hear a lot of samples from the 70s, from the 80s. You hear all this stuff. It's all in depth. But not only are you scratching, you know, beats that might be using different elements in hip hop and might be doing a little funk, some of this. You also got KJ on the guitar singing with a sound that's like from so many different angles. On that note, though, like who are your influences, you know, behind, you know, learning guitar or singing like that? I'll start with you, KJ. Like who are some of your influences?
Well, to be clear, I'm a bass player, and I play bass in the band. But my influences, I mean, I don't know. I guess in the beginning, I fell in love with guys like Stanley Clarke. So much so that I went to the school he went to, University of the Arts, which happens to be one of the oldest conservatories on the East Coast. And when I heard he went there, I mean, I grew up outside of Philly, so like, you know, it was sort of a natural thing. But, you know, Stanley Clarke, Jocko, you know, Anthony Jackson, and then the guys I studied with, Gerald Beasley and Lincoln Goines, you know, people who take the instrument and take it a step further. You know, bass started out as a support instrument. You know, it was like the thing that you stuck in the back of the orchestra that made the rumble, while everybody was watching the violins. And then, you know, and it's always been the people in the back of the band. And I love that I love the bassist support role, but you know, there are guys throughout history who made it more than what anybody ever thought it could be. And when I finally understood what bass was and heard the different implementations of it, I was automatically drawn to great soloists and great you know, guys that just did funky grooves and that played melodies instead of just, you know, the support. And don't get me wrong, I love the support. I'll fucking groove for hours with a good drummer or a good beat. But there's more to it. So that's my influence. And as far as singing is concerned, I came late to the game. You know, I always loved pop melodies. I always loved good, well-written songs. Singing for me was always a means to an end. You know, I wanted to be able to vocalize because it's an incredibly natural instrument. It's the most fundamental human thing you can do in music. But I never trained as a singer. Like I trained as a sideman and as a bassist. But I guess if I had had some loves and influences, I have to say Sting. I love his voice, and God, I mean, there's so many great people, but the reason I can't come up with a good name is because I don't consider myself a singer. I'm a bass player who sings.
What about you, Juice?
My influences were actually non-rap and hip hop influences. When I first started scratching, I started to scratch like a percussionist. So when you hear my scratches, like you're gonna get yours on Riot Starter, you're hearing a bongo rhythm or conga rhythm. So my influences were like Ray Barretto on the congas, bongoceros like Roberto Roena from Fania All Stars, rhythmic soloists like guitar players like George Benson prior to his singing career. You know, he was playing with people like Brother Jack McDuff, because he had these incredible guitar licks, like on My Three Sons. And that's a scratch solo. You know what I'm saying? So my scratches were influenced more by musicians than they were by actual DJs. But the DJ that made me really want to DJ like that was Grand Mix and DXG. Or at the time, D Street, because that's how it was pronounced. Now, he's also an actual drummer, an accomplished drummer. And it's no coincidence that a lot of these phenomenal rap dudes and hip hop people come from that background. Rakim's aunt is Ruth Brown, the blues and soul singer. And he also plays saxophone. DJ Premier also plays horn. You know, so when people, make this romanticized notion of hip hop being dudes that couldn't play instruments, that were just playing their $5,000 GJ sets because they couldn't afford a $200 trumpet. I laugh at that. I'm like, really? That's what it was? We couldn't afford these instruments, so we just bought out more expensive crap to rock in the park. No, they choose to use the instruments. So I would say DXT, of course, Grandmaster Flash, because without him, where would any of us be? And also B-boys. I learned from B-boys like Spy and Batch and Beaver, and watching those dudes. And B-boy and DJing is a very physically rhythmic thing. You got to use your hands and your arms. And breakdancing, as you guys call it, B-boy and rocking, the term is rocking. That is the most purest form of expression. There's no instrument needed but your body.
Right.
So I used my B-boy sensibilities at rocking to inform my DJing. Because when you move your arm, because it's funky, that helps you move your arm when you're scratching a record or when you're playing a bongo or whatever. So those are my influences overall. But you can mix a million people in there. Earth, Wind, and Fire, Sly and the Family Stone, James Brown, of course. So I can go on forever. But you could go and pick any one of my 70,000 records of vinyl that I have, and all of them at some point with some kind of influence.
Well, that's dope. And it definitely goes to show, like, a lot of the people that, are still out there that are like, yeah, turntable isn't an instrument. It's like, well, some people could prove you wrong on that, on that notion.
Yeah, they're absolutely wrong.
Especially the way, you're playing it, or, other DJs like you, that are similar, that are doing different things with the instrumental portion of it, rather than, just spinning different songs that are out there, just to, rock parties or whatever. Tell me a little bit about your single Bang Bang.
Bang Bang is, to my mind, one of the most important songs we've done so far. It's a modern protest song. It couldn't possibly be any more relevant than it is today, because of the just ridiculous bullshit that's going on with race relations in this country. It was written on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I don't know, a couple of years ago. Juice sent me this. One of the beats that Juice sent was the basis for that song, and I was, he fills up a folder of stuff for me, and I'll listen to it and just, during the writing process, find something that feels like I'm feeling that day. It was MLK Day, and Chuck D had posted something on social, I guess, and I followed him, and it just occurred to me that I had this overwhelming feeling that we're no further along today than we were in Dr. King's time. And I was feeling dark and pissed and angry. And, this beat that Juice sent just perfectly encapsulated how I was feeling at the time. And I started writing those lyrics about Dr. King, but also about Trump. And because that was the height of my frustration with the Trump administration, that whole horrible episode in America over the past few years, and this thing it came together, and the words came out fast, and we did what we normally do. I took Juice's beat, put something on top of it, sent it back to him. He put something on it, sent it back to me, back to him, back to me. All of a sudden, this thing came together like it was meant to be. And I, of course, Juice and I were talking about it at the time, the how it came about, and the fact that I was inspired by something Chuck said for the lyrics, and obviously Juice and Chuck go way back. So Juice is like, well, let's see if Chuck will do this, and he agreed. I don't know, you can tell that part of the story, Juice, but there's nobody else who could have done it, just nobody.
I went to Chuck's house. I tied him up. I said, "You're going to do this song, and there's going to be problems." I hit him up, and I'm like, "Yo, man, check this out. This is what we did. What do you think?" He's like, "Yo, what do you need me to do?" I said, "Do a verse, yo." So he's like, "Cool." So I left the space for you. So what's up? So he did it. He sent it back. I flew it in. Came out perfect. And then when we did the video, Ato Asando was the director of. Um, I just so happened to catch Chuck at the right time. He happened to be in New York. He's at the crib. Like, yo, we need to film you for this. He's like, all right, I got 20 minutes. So he ran over there right before he went out for dinner with his kids, and we set up a little black screen. Boom, we recorded him doing his piece, and we were out. You know, Chuck is extremely busy, but he can be accommodating if he believes in what you're doing. And he believed in this project. I mean, he believes, I'll be honest with you, he believes in almost anything I do. So, you know, but I don't like him to do things just because it's me. Like, all right, I'll do it because, you know, you're Juice. I'm like, listen, you don't like it, then just tell me you ain't doing it. I'd rather you just tell me that, because I don't want you to half-ass something, you know, or mail it in. And Chuck is not that kind of a person, but Chuck is a very loyal dude. And we've got some great dudes on this album. Like, we got DMC from Run DMC, we got Charlie Brown. We got some cats on this record. We got NY Oil, aka Cool Kim from the UMCs. You know, yes, we got some dudes that happen to be friends of mine as well as people I respect. And I tell all of them, you hear the song and you don't like it, don't get on it. Don't just be like, well, I'm gonna get on it because Juice is my man. Which makes it more, you know, it makes it a little more special. Like,
yeah, you want them to believe in it.
And DMC's wife heard it. So we sent them and was like, yo, you need to go in the studio that night and record this. Like, she told him, and he told me the story. He's like, yo, Zuri said, you better go and record that tonight. And he sent it the next day. DMC's first the next day. And he don't have a home studio, so that tells you a lot about Kyle. So,
you know, the reverse is true too. Like, you know, Juice and I agreed, like, even if, you know, a great MC, you know, that with a name that could help us out marketing wise, would said yes, we wouldn't have them on a track unless we agreed that it made sense musically speaking. Nobody else could have done that track that DMC did. Nobody else could have done the track that Chuck did. These guys, I mean, you hear it and there's absolutely no way it could be anybody else. Juice also brought up the video that Otto Asando directed, and I feel like it's worth mentioning that I feel like the video is just as important as the song, because what it does visually, it really tells the most incredible story of this dystopian future that we all felt like we were headed to when that schmuck was in the White House. And it's worth checking out. It's on YouTube, youtube.com/The Oddysy.
Actually, yeah. And if you're watching this episode right now, I know some of you are, driving around in your car listening to this podcast, but if you're watching this, seriously, pull over, go on YouTube, look it up, youtube.com/The Oddysy, and that's ODDYSY. Otherwise, this episode, the video version of this episode will show the music video. So check that out. We're actually going to get right into it, and then we're going to get right back with The Oddysy here on Artist on Call.
Martin Luther King 20 minutes ago died. I would like to take this opportunity to ask Reverend John Genzel, the jazz minister, to lead all of us in prayer for Martin Luther King and the future of all civil rights movements.
Landslide, the biggest vibration. so D make a miracle. Power the people say follow for now. What you ought to do, what he can say to you. You still ought to listen to Minister Farrakhan. Cause a brother like me said, well, cause my records, they all still sell. That's why they got me in the cell. But it's the wax that Johnny Juice spun. 2020 never had a gun. 5 said freeze. And they got dumb. Public enemy number one. Still uncannibal. The rhyme animal. Back is the incredible. Once again, what a brother know. Death row. How low can you go? Bass. Turn it up. Bass. Bass. Turn it up. Bass. I don't want to fight no more, but this song is all I'm fighting for. And I can't get more than land to the old white man. Give me the bang bang. Give me strength to carry through. And the drum is not right to go. Now I don't get more than land to the old white man. Give me the bang bang. Hey! Come on! Come on!
That was Bang Bang by the Oddysy. You spell their name as Oddysy. You can find that on all major digital streaming platforms. You could also find that on YouTube, where you just saw it if you're watching this. That was dope. That was dope. You know what I loved about Chuck D's part too is he had those cliche Chuck D lines, you know, the legendary lines people know him about. He was just bringing them back, you know, resurfacing. And like, not only that, but like, I don't even know where to start on this record. Like the fact that you have the authentic sound of, you know, hip hop blended with the funk. Like, I love the sound. You know, the only thing I've ever heard that I can compare to it would be something like Beck, you know, something Beck used to do, stuff like that, you know, and I mean that in the best way, you know, but like, right. Oh, absolutely. And like, that's the only thing. But as soon as I heard it, I'm like, damn. And like, I'm so curious to see what you guys have coming up next.
I'll take
now,
Beck. Beck is a millionaire, right?
Yeah. See, so you'll take that. So now you have a project coming out soon, right?
Yeah.
We do. We have a full-length record, 13 songs long. It's called "You Must Be Just Don't Know Who I Is," and you know, like Juice said, it features some just absolutely iconic voices on it. It includes "Bang Bang," a you know, new version of it includes a new version of everything we put out so far. You know, it's in the mixing stages now, and we hope to have it out in a few months.
That's dope. Now, and like I said, you know, DMC, I met years ago as well, you know, and him being on that album, I can't wait to check it out as well, you know, despite the rest of the sounds that I'm digging so far. But DMC, actually, I met him back in 2001 or 2, one of those, when I was at the academy down there. And he was actually going to DJ my like graduation party up in Connecticut, or not DJ. He was going to come rock it. He was actually going to come spit and do stuff. Not DJ.
That's amazing.
But so I hit him up. I'm like, hey, come up, you know, do this party. He's like, oh, okay. And we're like getting it final. And then he goes, where is it? I go, Salisbury. He goes, where's Salisbury near? And I'm like, we live in the sticks, dude. Salisbury is near nothing. So like, I didn't even respond to that because I'm like, you know what? He's not coming anywhere near Salisbury. It's in the middle of nowhere. So turns out like I hit him back and like you could just tell it was in the sticks. So he's not coming to the sticks. So Rob Swift ended up, you know, being in his place. He ended up coming up to Rocket.
First of all, you should have said Salisbury. You know why? Because D is that dude. Like D lives in New Jersey, and I was doing this one radio show way out in Stony Brook, which is a couple of hours out into Long Island. It was far from me, and I live on Long Island. You know what I'm saying? So it was up there. This guy, my man DJ Oxygen, was doing his final show after 20-something years of doing his radio show. And I said, D, why don't you call in? Because he's a huge DMC fan. Call in, shock him, or bug him out. D drove out with his son. And he hits me up. And I'm like, yo, what's up, man? I said, you don't call me, call the radio show. He's like, no, I'm downstairs. You got to open the door. I'm like, what? So I went downstairs, opened the door, and there was a marathon. This was like 2 days straight they did this, right? Yeah. So he stood like the whole night. He was answering phones. It was crazy.
That's freaking nuts.
So
Yeah, I guess I should have taken him up on that offer.
G would have came out to Salisbury with some steak sauce. So
yeah, the best part was like even Rob Swift coming from Queens, you know, he was coming up the road, and I think like my cousins were walking on the road or something. He's like, "Where am I going?" Like the driveway's a mile into the woods, so it's like, "Good luck, buddy. You'll find us somehow."
But wait till you hear the rest of the album. The rest of the album, as much as you think this is some kind of crossover, there's stuff that'll definitely blow your mind with some of the other stuff.
Oh, I can't wait.
You can hear down there ballad-like stuff. You're gonna hear instruments like santors and Middle Eastern instruments on some of the records. You can hear a lot of stuff. Now, some of the stuff sounds like samples. A lot of the stuff sounds like samples. Most of it is played.
Yeah.
By either KJ or myself. Or some we had my boy Neil Faison played on guitar and Bang Bang, as well as a couple other songs. We had Gary Scheider's son from Parliament Funkadelic, played guitar solo on one of the joints. So, you know,
Bones on bass.
Oh yeah.
There's a song that I don't play bass on that Juice's friend fucking killer bass player.
Bones killed it, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, so we got my man John Montalbano from My World. So we got some great musicians on there. Not to mention another great musician that you see right here, KJ, rocking on it. Me, when I feel comfortable, you hear me playing some instruments. I'm rocking keys, and a couple of songs I'm even playing bass. Go figure, right? So
that's so dope.
So you never know what you're gonna hear, but you know what the thing is, it doesn't really matter. As long as you feeling it, you vibing. As long as it sounds like it's organic. We don't force a marriage of sounds. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If it works, it's in there.
Right.
But you're gonna hear,
and we're honest about that with each other,
which
I think is rare for a band.
Oh, 100%.
You got to throw the ego out the window. I mean, I've been accused of having like an ego, but I think that it's been misinterpreted. When I feel a certain way about a song, it's not because it's mine or because of it. It's because I'm fighting for the song.
Right. I think, the difference between you and most DJs I know too is you're very particular about the instrumentation, which I like highly respect, because you're more about like you're not about the commercial, side of DJing and everything. You're about the sound. You're about the feeling behind it, and you're about using turntables as an instrument, which I'm like 100% behind. So if you have an ego, have an ego. You deserve to have an ego.
The thing is, man, it's not even about using the turntables as an instrument. It's about playing an instrument, right? So, you can get Emmett Otter and get my jug band or whatever. Guys using the little washboards. I mean, none of those are instruments technically, but whatever you're gonna play it. You know what I mean? So if it works, use it. If it doesn't, don't use it. It's that simple. If I'm fighting for something in a song, it's not because I'm married to it because I did it. I'm married to it because I believe in it. I think it should stay, or I think it should go because the song dictates that, right? So the song is the one with the ego. The song is the one that wins. The song is key. Me, I'm just a vessel adding to it. KJ is just adding to it. But the sum is greater than the parts.
Okay.
Like, how is, like, obviously you probably have a marketing team that's doing all this, but like, how is marketing a group that is in such a niche as you guys are? Would you say it's more complicated, or it's easier just because it's so different?
It's impossible. I mean, the industry wants, the music industry has boxes, and if they can't stick you in a bucket, they don't know what the fuck to do with you. And we don't belong. We don't go in a bucket. We go in 5 buckets. So what kind of music do you make is the first thing that people ask you if you say you're a musician. God, I don't know what to tell them.
You should say what I say, the good kind. So they say, what kind of music do you make? The good kind, right? So the thing is, somebody asked me a long time ago, what genre would I call it? I'm like, I committed genre side a long time ago, right? I don't believe in genres. Genres are created essentially so they could sell records to certain demographics. And they didn't really become super important until like the 70s when singles were coming out, right? But before that, he called it. The real reason why they came out with genres was so they could pigeonhole black music, right? Like, how do you know you listen to a black artist? It was called rhythm and blues,
right?
Just like the Harlem Globetrotters, right? You know that the Harlem Globetrotters weren't from Harlem, right? They're from Chicago.
I didn't know that.
The reason why they called them the Harlem Globetrotters was because they were a black team. And back in those days, there were no black teams other than the Harlem Rams, who were actually really from Harlem. So if you heard the word Harlem in front of the team, you had to assume they were black.
Jesus.
So this was their way of saying, yo, just so you know, when you show up, there's going to be black people playing, right? So that's what genres were, essentially, for music. Just so you know, when you show up, you're going to see an old black dude with a guitar singing instead of an old white dude with a guitar singing. So these genres are meant to kind of do that in that kind of way.
Yeah.
So,
and now look at all the freaking subgenres that are out today. It's
right. So
freaking genre for everything.
We don't care about genres. I don't care. You know what? But people now that say they're a hip hop DJ, and you mentioned turntablism and all that. There was no such thing. Either you were a DJ or you were not.
Right.
When I was first started.
Well, and like you said, DJs back then were spinning records of all decades. It wasn't just hip hop,
Yeah, well, there was no hip hop. So you were spinning different records that you spin records that make people dance. We are the equivalent of that now. We make songs that make you dance or to make you think or to make you whatever, to give you some kind of emotional, some kind of response. But it doesn't matter what you want to call it. What difference does it? You want to call it rap, hip hop? I don't care. You want to call it pop? I don't care. You know what? I don't care what you call it. Just buy it. We don't have any marketing team because even a marketing team will sit there and go, I don't know what the fuck to call this. So
we've met with a lot of people. We've had people work with us, but they're in the industry too, and they need a bucket too. It's somebody. We need a what was the Beatles manager, Brian? We need somebody who's ready to throw away the rule book and
well, and how are these new sounds created? This is how, you're creating your own sound and you're forgetting, about, I feel like when you're in a genre, when you're accepted into like, oh, I'm just funk, or I'm just this or just that, you're limited. So say if I did get inspiration, if I was one of those artists and I was getting inspiration from this way or that way, I can't use it, because I'm stuck in this one genre. I mean, yeah, I could convert it and try to use it in my own way, but it's totally like what you said, like it's segregation and you're totally being limited, to what you can do. So I'm 100% on board with what you guys are talking. Now, that being said, look at hip hop and look at the industry today. It's totally different. When in the 90s listening to hip hop compared to today and like rock, is like classic rock is now like country in a way. It's like, it's really weird how, it's evolving and everything. So it kind of just goes to show you these people were already, extending what they were doing by having the same mentality anyways, but you guys are doing it in a totally different way, by blending all these genres that you are into your own style.
But that's always happened. Like when James Brown created whatever he created, what was it before that? It was rhythm and blues, it was soul, whatever you want to call it. But, people started calling it the funk and people said the Godfather of soul. And those names didn't exist before somebody decided to market that. The term salsa for Latin music, that term didn't exist until Izzy Sanabria from the Fania All-Stars created. It was called mambo. Remember the Mambo Kings? It was called pachanga, charanga, whatever the popular dance was called. And then to separate what they were doing, Izzy was the guy that did their record covers. He did the graphic design on their album covers. And they asked him in an interview, what is that you guys are playing? Because salsa, mambo and that kind of music, son montuno from Cuba, they always talk about the same things: food, women, how great the island is. And then we had these guys from Fania talking about how ghetto it is in the city, how you get hurt if you walk on the wrong side of the street, and things like that. Or like Aguanile, where Hector Lavoe goes to a uh, for lack of a better word, a witch doctor, or what we call there's a religion called Santeria, right, in the island, but it's the same. It's Yoruba. It's Western African Yoruban. He goes to Yoruban priests to get rid of his sins, to wash it away from him before it drives him crazy. And who talks about that in these happy, mambo records? No one did. So the music, while technically came from mambo or son, they're like, but what is that? And he said, that's that salsa, man. He just came up with the term. I mean, sauce, right? So traditionalists like Tito Puente were going, they asked him, what do you think about salsa? And he goes, I'm a musician. I'm not a cook. He hated the term. He's like, oh, why? Who uses that? He didn't like them until they picked up Celia Cruz. And he was a huge Celia Cruz fan. So now all of a sudden he's like, all right, I got to listen to these guys. Meanwhile, the irony is it created this whole new style of doing that by basically saying, we refuse to let you call us anything. We're gonna name what we are. And guess where all of that occurred? In the Bronx.
Right.
When did it occur? Right before hip hop. Is that a coincidence that all of that happened in the same area by the same type of people living in the same conditions? I don't think so. So hip hop is literally an extension of the same conditions that created salsa. But here we are, we're doing the same thing now, me and KJ. So maybe we should just name it whatever the hell we want to, and hopefully it catches on. You know what I'm saying? So
I don't blame you.
I don't know.
Let's call it salsa.
Yeah, salsa. We call it salsa. Guanabana.
Here, you heard it first. We created genres on this podcast. Now, how have you guys been handling this whole COVID thing over the past year with music and everything? Obviously, everything's been on pause and we can't do much. I mean, now it's starting. I mean, I just got my second shot and think I'm feeling all right. Do I look all right? But like either way, like how you guys been handling it?
Taking my second shot right now.
I mean, the thing is that, we made this entire record on Dropbox. I mean, we've been sharing files. I mean, we're kind of digital natives as far as music is concerned in that way. We're
nerds.
Yeah, we're geeks.
I'm with it.
Yeah, like I was saying before, Drew sends a beat and I send back a melody and he sends back a percussion part and I send back whatever, and so it was kind of a natural transition for us. When in the quarantine, there was just, I don't know, I guess there was just a little bit more time to work on the stuff, and but not much about that changed. I mean, we've been in the studio together, but we don't have to be in the studio together. And I think that's cool about us. I think we're both very I think we both appreciate being able to create in a solitary environment. I think I work better that way. I'll say that. I want to be able to. I don't need somebody looking over my shoulder, and I don't need to explain anything. When it's right, I'll send it. And so I will say one thing, and that is that possibly much to Juice's dismay, I redid a lot of the shit on the record during the pandemic. I'm like, well, we're locked in here, and I know I can do better. And, I went on this sort of journey of discovery and found out how to do my shit better. And some of the stuff on the record, I just completely recut because why not?
Yeah.
I did the same thing, except it was new stuff. So now KJ has a whole bunch of new shit in his Dropbox. It's like,
I got a whole new folder of stuff to write.
It's like, we can't use that on this record. I'm like, well, fuck it, we use it for the next one.
And that's dope. Now, when you're talking about personal spaces, I see both of you have like pretty active backgrounds. Now, KJ, like tell me a little bit about like the bass guitars you have on your wall and the art. Like, what was the inspiration in that room?
Well, my primary bass is Federa. I've been with so Vinny Federa is like the Stradivarius of his generation. He's a luthier in Brooklyn. His partner Joey Laricella, and they made this thing, which is custom made for me. It's one of a kind, and it was like writing a song with somebody. I went and hung out with Vinny in Brooklyn. They've been in the same shop for the 20-something years that I've known them, and we sat down alone and talked together about the sound that I had in my head. And then he brings me back and he's like, well, this piece of wood right here was dredged up from the bottom of a river, and he knocks on it.
Wow.
And this has got a hollow sound, but it's wide. And then this piece of wood I found from it, if I had it flown in from Colombia, and he knocks on it, and and it has this characteristic, and together we just sort of created this thing.
Wow.
So that's my main instrument. The stuff hanging on the walls. I mean, there's another Federa behind me. The other two basses are sort of the obligatory Fender P bass and Fender Jazz bass, because you got to have it. And the upright behind me. And then that piece of art behind me is Keith Link. He made that, and that's the guy who introduced me to bass in the first place. And then the one directly behind my head is my dad, who is a retired architect and now an artist, a visual artist.
That's incredible. Hey, we're talking about an inspiring room,
Seriously. And then amp-wise, same thing. Nick Epifani is like Vinny Federa, but he makes amplifiers, and these sort of my old Italian uncles. They take care of the bass community and hand make the best shit on the planet, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, it looks like it.
I just got shit that I buy in the stores, man. I'm not fly like KJ. I don't have to make me custom shit from woods and carved out freaking tiki torches underneath the seat. I have standard 1200s, as everybody would have. I have a rain mixer. Actually, I have a few set of turntables, so I have a bunch of mixers. I do have. I should mention that Roland has been very gracious and has been helping me out with equipment, because we have a little artist agreement in place, and they have been helpful in me restocking my go-to gear, rocking the RC 505 loop pedal joint. Sick. I do have a VT4 voice processor and a JDXI keyboard with vocoder built in. I should also mention the fact that I'm a longtime Tascam endorser. Neil Faison, who played the guitar on Bang Bang, works at Tascam. He's been a brother of mine for a long time, leasing us with the Model 12. I have some other crap laying around. I wouldn't say it's crap, but it's useful gear. I have a bunch of MIDI controllers, sample playback things, and I'm a longtime Cakewalk user, which was the way I met KJ through my boy Carl Jacobson, who was at the Cakewalk at the time. So, these connections actually are more important than just them providing gear for me. I've always said that if I was going to endorse a product, I'm really endorsing the company, not just the product. So I have to have some kind of personal connection with somebody at the company, not just hey, you're another dude, fill this paperwork out, blah blah blah. I don't dig that, because what happens is when those guys leave and nobody else knows who you are, they don't care. I've been lucky enough for some of these guys, when they leave that company, go to another company, get a phone call. Hey, Juice, I'm not at that company anymore. I'm over here. We got some great stuff that I think would be perfect for what you're doing. See, that's what happens when you have a relationship, not just a deal. So, but I will use whatever the hell you throw for me. So you throw two rocks in front of me, I'll find something to bang them on, and then they'll.
People do throw rocks at him.
So he would make some instruments out of tiki torches if you got him some tiki torches.
I would. They have to be hollowed out and have to be sanded down with 120 grit sandpaper, and then they have to be shellacked.
Well, I guess I would be remiss. I better give shout out to the rest of our relationships. MXR Pedals, and also Juice hooked me up with the fam at Roland. So thank you to them, and also Labella Strings, another Brooklyn company. Just handmade good shit.
Louis hooked us up with some dope mics.
This is the part where we sound like ear horns.
No, dude, I'm into it. I'm the same way. You guys said geek. I mean, I'm all. If I was to turn this camera and you'd see the studio, you'd be like, oh yeah, same thing.
Well, I happen to be an electrical engineer.
Oh, okay.
Computer scientist, so they break, I open them up and I fix them.
See, I totally respect that, because actually the ground on mine's broken right now, and I was just learning how to solder.
Juice will be right over. Just send them your address.
Yeah. Now I know. That's crazy.
Yeah, because I got to send you that invoice, baby.
No, that's dope. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you would have just seen the Oddysy and their song, their music video for Bang Bang. You will hear them soon with their 13-song record called You Must Be Just Don't Know Who I Is, featuring Chuck D, Daryl DMC McDaniels, Cool Kim from Leaders of the New School, and Garrett Scheider. And many more. I mean, down the road, I'm sure you guys are going to collaborate with a lot of people. Now, tell me this record is coming out on vinyl. It has to.
Oh, hells yeah. Are you kidding? 180 gram, and we have yet to decide on the color, but it's coming out on colored vinyl.
Look at that. See,
the single is actually on vinyl, so
this
is limited edition.
And where can people find the single on vinyl?
On theoddysy.bandcamp.com or theoddysy.com. So TheOddysy.com. And we got limited edition red vinyl, 7-inch, and regular black vinyl 7-inch. And we also have t-shirts. And when the record comes out, it's going to be on 180 gram vinyl and also cassette and possibly 8-track and one of those old Edison cylinders from the late 19th century.
I'm with it. There's only so many records we could put on vinyl now, and this is definitely one of them. You guys are definitely starting a new movement, and I'm respecting it. Usually I'm not a fan of artists until they come on Artists on Call and I hear about them. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm a fan of this person now. I was a fan of you guys before this even started. As soon as I heard it, I was like, okay, I got to get these guys on so I can, hear more about it, so I'm with it. You got my support all the way. Anything you need, let me know. But otherwise, anybody listening, go check out theoddysy.com. That's ODDYSY. Same spelling for theoddysy.bandcamp.com, Instagram.com/theoddysy. Thanks for coming on, guys. We'll definitely be in touch.
Thanks for having us on, man.